Okay. Hi everyone. So we were the Southeast Asia Law Network, but now we are the Legal Mile. Um, so with this rebranding, we will be starting our first event, which is our trainee Q&A with Shereen Goh. So she's a future trainee at HSF. And Rachel, would you like to say anything more?
Yeah, hi guys. I'm Rachel. I'm the events officer for Legal Mile. This is Shereen. She is actually my mentor, and she gives really, really useful advice. And I just thought I'd share her insights with you guys today. So I'll just kick it off. First question from our audience was that they wanted to know what your application strategy was. So did you apply to a lot of law firms or like a handful? I know people get really conflicting advice online.
Yeah, so just a brief introduction. Hi guys, I'm Shereen, and I just finished my degree, and I'm going to my LPC next month, and I will be starting my training contract with Herbert Smith Freehills in September. So on your question, Rachel, I think it's important to know that it's always quality over quantity. So I think you should choose a few firms. I would say at most 10 to apply to, and then drop the rest, because there's no point trying to throw like too many stones and trying to hit one, because that's not going to work. And like the firms really want to see quality in your application and how catered and how tailored you are to the firm. So having sending the same application, like it might work for other industry to send like the same cover letter and the same CV to like a few thousand companies and then see which one hits. But I think for law it's quite different, because every application form is different, and then the questions are different. So I think it's important to just really choose a few firms that you really want to apply to, and then just focus on those applications.
Right. Just to give them an
Yeah.
idea, how many did you manage to complete in your cycle?
Yeah, so for me, I applied to, like I said, I used the 10 strategy. So I applied to 2 Magic Circle. And I think I would advise to apply to a mixture. So basically, do a few Magic Circle firms, a few Silver Circle firms, a few regional firms, and a few American firms, and also a few mid-sized firms, so that because I mean applications are, as much as like it's based on your capability, it's also based on your fit for the firm. So you might not be someone who's fitted for a big firm, and you might be better off at a small firm. So it's good. I mean, if you really want a training contract, I would say that maximize your chances by diversifying your portfolio. Apply to a few different kind of firms to see which maybe like this category will suit you more.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
yeah. Completely agree. It is a numbers game at the end of it, and it's good to increase your chances. So after the second question, our audience wants to know, what is your number one tip to stand out during the application process at HSF?
Okay, this is a bit hard because I don't even know. But anyway, I think I would say to stand an application process, whether it's at HSF or other firms, is to really be yourself. Because I know that it's very tempting to craft your application based on what you think the firm wants. So like people end up joining like 1,000 of societies and clubs to just boost their CV and to make them look very impressive. But actually, after all, they just want people to work for them, and people who they can work with. So they don't want your CV to sound like you are like this crazy like person who's like doing so many things at once, but you don't have people skills. So I think it's important to know what you want to present to the firm as well, and like I guess tailor your applications to the firm is very, very important. And like I always tell people, if your application is not you can substitute the name of the application with another firm. That means your application is not good enough, because that means it's not tailored enough to the firm. So I think that's something very important to remember. And I guess at the end of the day, as much as you can get advice from a lot of people to, oh, you have to say this in an interview, you have to say that, it's really important to be yourself, because I think as much as the firm is trying to choose you, you are also trying to choose the firm. So in order to find out whether the firm is a good fit for you, it's important that you be yourself and see if the firm wants you then. If not, you have, because the training contract is 2 years, and even if you were to decide to leave after that, it's gonna be a 2 very tough years at a firm if you don't like it. So I know that at this point you would feel like maybe I'm not in the position to choose a firm because nobody wants me. But I guess at the end of the day, it's also, I mean, they are also appreciating you as talent. So I think it's important to, make sure that you also like the firm before you just blindly accept any offers or blindly apply to firms.
Yeah, completely agree. I mean, like I'm applying during this application cycle, and I do feel like a lot of law firms are moving towards strength-based recruitment, which is like they're not they know we are trained in competency and motivational now, so they're throwing in something new. And as much as it's kind of counterintuitive, I think you do need to practice being yourself, because you might be just so honed in on this is what I need to say, this is what I need to do. But yeah, absolutely agree. One of our audience members, this should be a relatively straightforward one. Are law school grades more important than your work experience and practical knowledge for HSF?
Okay, I don't really know like what exactly, like whether, because even if we got like our feedback after the VAC scheme and stuff, they don't really tell us like how they weigh you, and like what's the weightage they give for each like component, let's say your work experience and your grades and stuff. But I would say it comes in a package. And I would say generally across all firms, not only for HSF, that law school grades are as important for you to pass your first round interview, to prevent your application forms from being rejected, from being thrown into the pile of rejects. It's important that you get the minimum grade. So it depends on the firms as well. Some firms do look at grades a lot, so they would normally look for candidates who have a first class or really high second upper. And some firms would just take a second upper as a benchmark. So a lot of firms just take your results, and I guess most firms do with second upper, and they just take second upper as a benchmark for you to pass that requirement, and then they will look at your application. So I would say yes, it's important, but I think it's also important that you get experience outside, because that's how you find out whether you really want to pursue this path. And because I mean, applying for a training contract is a very arduous process, and you don't want to get into it without knowing what it entails. So I guess like and also work experience allow you to know more about industry and makes you more convincing as a candidate as well during the interview, because you could really tell them like why you want to do this, because you have done it before and you understand what it entails. So I guess like I would say both are equally as important, but I think don't be too stressed about not getting a first because like you think that the firms don't want you that way, because that's certainly not true.
Absolutely, yeah. It's important not to get thrown out and during like the first step, get your foot in the door with your grades. So another question regarding application is that they want to know what are the primary attributes and qualities that HSF recruiters are looking for.
Oh, okay. So like on this question, actually you can go onto the HSF website, I think. Like they have the careers website, and when you want to apply for when you go to their training contract application like page, I think they actually list out the criteria that they want to see in their future trainees. So I guess that's where you can look at, and that's the same for other firms as well. Most of the firms do list out the criteria that they want to look for in a trainee. So and I think that's a very important tip for when you want to craft your applications, because try to cater to what they are looking for. For example, like some firms would say that we are looking for driven and individuals with analytical thinking kind of thing. So like you would know that that's what they are actually looking for, and that's how you demonstrate your capabilities during the application. So you craft the application and your experience based on what they are looking for.
Yeah, that answers my follow-up question as to how you can prepare for them. Literally just look at their values, look at their skills that they're looking for, and then craft yourself. It's not craft yourself, but like you obviously have those skills. Mention them, be proud of them,
So I would say I think most of the experience is, I mean, it's not to say that you fake an experience, but most of the time you already have the experience and you have learned a lot from it. It's just that you don't really know how to expand it and how to present yourself in an interview. And I think that's where most people fail at interviews, because I mean, there are a lot of people, I'm pretty sure everyone has their own own capabilities and own achievements to boast of, and it's just that you don't really know how to make it sound like you really deserve a spot there, that's where the problem comes in. So it's important. That's why these criteria come in important, because when you look at what is written there, then you can, like when they say analytical thinking, so you can think about examples of how you can demonstrate analytical thinking. For example, like, you know, when you have done an internship at a firm, what research do you do, or like what case have you been on that made you demonstrate that you know, that analytical thinking. So I guess, yeah, that's how you prepare for those kind of questions.
I guess maybe a follow-up from that would be how did you prepare? Like, you said that people don't really know how to talk about it. So do you have any tips on how to like help them out with that? Maybe
Okay,
to
to be
start.
honest, it's honestly just the STAR method, like, you know, situation, task, action, and result. So crafting, I mean, when you write essays in your application form, it's important to follow this format, because if you are imagine like the firm HR, they receive, like the graduate recruitment receive like thousands of applications every, it takes them very, very long to go through it. So they'll automatically like throw away applications that doesn't look pleasant to them. I mean, it's just the same as us. Like when you look at something that you feel like it's too hard to read, you wouldn't really pay attention to it. So if you give them a clear outline of, you know, this is what I'm involved in, this is what I've done, and this is what I've gained, so they know that, oh yeah, this girl has this criteria. And I know it's not a box ticking exercise, but honestly, it really helps the reader's job a lot when you do it that way. And it's also easy for you to, because most of the applications and most of the essays gives you a word requirement, like a word limit. So I think this way it also help you to shorten your words a lot and help you like fit everything in that short word limit. And also, I guess when you, like, what I found very helpful and what I did during my application process was to list out the things that I have participated in, or like activities that I've involved myself in, and then I try to ask myself, so what criteria or what skills or what, you know, values did I gain from these activities. So that's how you start from there, and then you start putting into boxes, and like you're like, okay, so for example, I've joined this law society, or I've participated in a sport. So what did I gain from that? Teamwork. Okay, so then you know that when a firm you apply to ask for teamwork, this is where your sports experience come into play. So it doesn't always have to be a law internship. It doesn't always have to be, oh, I'm just active in law society. It can be non-law related, and is equally as welcome as your law experience.
Definitely,
Yeah.
completely agree. That competency table helped me a lot. If you know the viewers want a template of that, let us know. Maybe we can prepare it in the future. Also, in the meantime, if you have any follow-up questions, feel free to put them in the chat. Like me and Shereen have talked this over, that we really want to help you guys. So if we're happy to let this run long, if you need that. Right. Moving on to HSF as a firm. Someone wants to know, what is the work culture like at HSF? Is it very accommodative or very rigid? Like, obviously you're a future trainee, so you can base this off your VAC scheme experience or just your general impression, I guess.
Okay, I guess, I don't know, like I'll be biased, right? Since I've chose HSF and I'm gonna work there, so I can't tell you. I mean, I won't tell you that HSF is bad and don't come here, because I'm going there. So I guess I do really like HSF, and I enjoyed my experience, my VAC scheme experience there very, very much. And I think it's really very accommodative. And I guess what's really good about the firm is, I know this is very cliche, but it's really the culture. People there are quite friendly, and they don't appear to you. I mean, because to me, before I even after I got my VAC scheme and before going on to it, I always imagine city law firms to be a very cutthroat, you know, place, and people are just really busy and they have no time to talk to you, and like you're just expected to work and to perform so that you can be retained. But they weren't like that when I was there, and people were very nice, and they were happy to take you out for a coffee, to chat with you over, you know, practice areas that you are interested in, and to talk more to you about like what you don't understand. So I found that really helpful, because I didn't get to sit in the practice area that I wanted during my VAC scheme that I was interested in. So the associate and the partner of that practice area took me out for coffee, and then they spoke to me about the practice area, and they explained to me what their work entails, which I was really, really appreciative of, because I felt like that really gave me a better understanding of what that practice area entails, and whether like my expectations of it is correct. So yeah, and I think even after I've accepted my training contract, and like till now, HSF has been trying to keep in touch with us, and we have like training events, and like even now in like this pandemic, when we have problems like returning to the UK, and like we have problems, I mean like we have issues with traveling and like doing the LPC and stuff, they are very accommodative about it, and it's always open. They're always open for conversation, which is something that I really appreciate. So yeah, I would think that it's a good place to be, and I would definitely encourage you guys to apply.
I mean, that sounds really great. That even though you didn't get the practice area you wanted, they put you in touch with people that are in that area. Yeah, that sounds really good. So just curious, what seats did you actually sit in your VAC scheme, and what tasks did you get to do?
Okay, so my VAC scheme was because I did the summer one, so I did my VAC scheme for 3 weeks, and I was placed in corporate tax for 2 weeks, and the last week I was in dispute resolution, specifically insurance disputes, because HSF is as known for their dispute resolution practice, so it's really big. And in the dispute resolution practice itself is divided into a few divisions. So there is like corporate disputes, there is insurance disputes, there is tax disputes. There's a lot of different categories. So I was placed in insurance. And what I really appreciate about my VAC scheme was that I got to do real work, like work that is actually ongoing, and it's not just like doing some research and you're not knowing what you are doing. So how the VAC scheme works at HSF is you will be placed under a mentor, so or I think they call it a supervisor, and you have a trainee buddy in the seat. So the trainee buddy is the person who you can ask about anything at all in the firm, and like, for example, where the pantry is, or where the food court is, kind of question. But your mentor is the one who gives you who gives you your work, who assigns you work and assess your work at the end of the day to see if you are a good fit for the firm. And what work did I get? It was a mixture actually. Like, so I did a bit of research. I also did I still got to sit in on a client meeting with my mentor. And I think the best part is I got to do pro bono work as well with my mentor, because every trainee in HSF is compulsory for every trainee in HSF to do pro bono. So I got roped in to do like pro bono work with my mentor. So I helped them with. So we had a legal clinic. So we did stuff like solving advising people on tenancy issues, on like problems with their employers and stuff like that. So I think it's very interesting. And I also did like some legal opinions like for our clients. And I think the best part is they really sit down and explain to you what your task is about, and you can always ask when you don't understand, because it might be quite daunting, like when you are given a task and they tell you like, oh, this, you are going to be assessed based on this, but you're not sure how to go about it. But I'm very fortunate to get very good mentors, which really set me down throughout, and they really tell me like, oh, this is what you're supposed to do. If you don't understand, you can always ask us, kind of thing. So I think it's really, so it's really good.
Yeah, that sounds very interesting actually, that you got to do pro bono work. That's so cool. So I know a lot of people have trouble even when they get the VAC scheme, then they have trouble turning it into a training contract, so how did you make yourself stand out during your VAC scheme, do you think?
Okay, I think like I've said before, like, I think it's very important to just be yourself at a VAC scheme. Like as much as you want them, as much as you want them to want you, you also want to want them. It's like there's really no point being in a firm that you don't like for 2 years, and like you're just stuck there. And I mean, I know I'm saying this probably from a position of like experience, because I've gotten a VAC scheme and I've got a training contract, so I can say this. But honestly, I think that's quite important, because like I know of my friends who don't enjoy their VAC scheme, but they just get into the firm for the sake of wanting a TC, and then they end up not liking it. So it's going to be a torturous 2 years if you ask me, like if you're going to work in a place that you don't like. Especially, as corporate lawyers, you're going to spend quite long hours at a firm. So you wouldn't want to work with people or work in an environment that you wouldn't like. And I think also one thing that they really appreciate is for you to have conversations with them. So rather than, coming from a point of view of like, oh yeah, I'm just here to learn, I just keep quiet and do what they want us to do, you should ask more questions when you don't understand, because that's what they encourage. Because like it's through asking questions that they know what you're thinking and they know your thought process, and like that's how you demonstrate your interest in the firm as well. So that I think really helps, like asking questions and being open to trying new things as well. Like don't be like, oh, like just because I want to be in, let's say I want to be in litigation and then I didn't get litigation, then I'm just really upset and I don't think I'm going to be here. Because like the back scheme is only for you to try and for you to know the culture of the firm. To be honest, you don't learn much technical knowledge during your back scheme because you are just there for a short 3 weeks and people take like 3 years to learn skills. So you're just there to really get a feel of the culture of the firm. So I think it's important for you to just be open to trying as well. And also another thing is, I guess it's very important to remember that you're all in this together. I know it's a competition between you and the other back schemers because, like, at the end of the day, not everyone is going to get on, is not going to get selected for the training contract. But honestly, you are supposed to work in a team because that's what solicitors' work is about. Like, you work in teams. So one thing they're trying to assess you on is your ability to work in teams and your ability to work with other people. So instead of trying to, think of ways to put people down or thinking of, oh, I can't share my knowledge with her because if not, she'll get a TC and I won't. It's important for you to help each other and to share that knowledge because you never know what you know and what you don't know. And most of the time, what you don't know, people know. And that's really helpful for you as well, when you ask them and when you share, they will also share with you. So I think that's very important. And I guess just focus on being yourself and doing your best instead of focusing on how everyone else is doing. Because I think we would a lot of times unknowingly do that because you want to gauge, like, oh, how's the level like? How's everyone like? If I'm better than the rest, I probably will get in. But I think that's a very bad mindset to have because when you keep thinking about that, you don't focus on your job anymore. You just keep thinking like, oh, I'm just going to make sure that person screw up so that I get a place at a firm, which is not a very positive mindset if you ask me, because I mean, eventually you have to work in teams with other people. You have to work in teams. So it's like, yeah, I think it's important to practice that even at the back scheme level.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think during like one of the law firm events, I've met this partner who was so fed up and was just like, don't come up to me and talk about like, oh, like how do you think the national security and investment bill would affect this client? Blah, blah, blah. Like he was like, you don't actually care. Like don't try to sound smart. Like
Yeah.
be human.
Yeah, I think that's
I think
very
they really find it
important,
refreshing.
to be honest. Like, I think a lot of people try to talk about things that they don't know and they expect the partners to like. But honestly, at most of the social events, I talk to the partners about their kids, about life, about like where I'm from, where I'm going on holidays. They want to know you as a person and not as a robot. I mean, if you're in the back scheme already, you are probably already good and they know you have the competency. They just want to know whether they can work with you in the future and whether you will be a good asset to the firm. So they don't want someone who just work and don't know how to socialize and don't know how to have fun. So I guess like really it's important to remember. I mean, like as much as it's important to be serious during your work, but you should know when to let go and when to really talk to people and sound like you mean it. Because I think a lot of people try to like what you say. A lot of people try to act smart and ask about, oh, so what do you think about, let's say, like during my time was like Brexit, and people start to ask about Brexit, how will it affect the firm and stuff like that. But like, yes, to a certain extent you care, but do you really care? I mean, and so it's like, yeah, and I guess you talk to them about the firm itself. Like they'll be very happy to answer you questions about them, like why are you at the firm for so long, and you'll be surprised that you actually get more information from these socializing events and these partners than you get online, because they really tell you from a very raw place. Like they tell you from their own experience. And like for me at HSF, most of the partners there are there since they were an associate. So that was what that really amazed me, because I was like, if you are here for 30 years, there must be something that kept you here. And that was what I've asked most of the partners. And that's what, they also told me about, like, the culture and stuff like that. So yeah, I think being yourself and asking things that you are really interested in is important.
Yeah, if you actually don't know anything about it, they'll see right through it. Like, I'm sure you can sound
Yeah.
really enthusiastic about a topic, but they see right through it.
Yeah, exactly.
Um,
They have been a lawyer for, the most of their lives. So honestly, don't try to do that.
yeah. Right. Okay, we'll move on to sort of general advice. So someone wants to know, how can foreign students bridge their gap of knowledge of the UK legal market?
Um, okay, I think really you have to read the news. Like, there's no shortcut to this, because this also ties into commercial awareness. You can't build your commercial awareness in a day, and that's important for you guys if you are trying to apply for schemes. Like, even not now, in the year to come, it's important for you to start reading now, because like, I know a lot of people think that, okay, I'll just get through the application stage, and if I get a back scheme, I'll start brushing up my commercial knowledge. But it doesn't work that way, because by then you only have a 1 or 2 week time to prepare, and you wouldn't have time to just read out on the news for like the year. So cultivate that habit of reading. And like, you don't have to, I'm not asking or expecting you to go through Financial Times every day and like, oh, this is all the stuff that I want to know. But I would say what I did was, Finiminds is a very good app to, they always summarize a few articles for you for like in like 2-3 minutes. It's a very easy like read every day. So that might be a good place to start. Another way is think about the topics that you're interested in. For example, like, let's say you are interested in the energy sector or the fashion industry. So you can, in Financial Times, you can actually cater to your interest. So you can like just like follow the news that is related to the fashion industry, and every day they will just show you what is up with the fashion industry. So in that way, right, you get a lot more tailored. And honestly, in assessment centers or in interviews, the partners don't ask you questions like, oh, what do you think about this news that happened like last month? They don't ask questions like that, because they know that you're not robots, and they don't expect you to know everything that's happened. They will, most probably they will ask you about a topic that you're interested in. So if you are really interested in a topic, then it will really show when you have done all this research and when you have read like intensity about it, and then that's what you can talk about. And I would say don't worry so much about choosing the right topics to read, because there's never, it's very wide. Like, law is a very wide profession, and if you're applying to these big firms, they have a wide array of like practice areas for you to choose from. So they don't really expect you to just like, oh, I just want you to be on M&A, and you should just tell me about like which merger has happened like last month, kind of thing. Yeah, and also like other than reading the news, talking to people is also very important. Don't be shy, like, especially people, like, LinkedIn is a place for you to talk to people. So when you find, especially like, when you find people that are like talking about their experience, people who extend their invitation to help you, grab it and ask them. Like, don't feel like, oh, I might be imposing on people might find me very annoying. Like, these are all like a cycle. Like, I've received a lot of help from people, that's why I'm paying it forward, and when you get it, you also pay it forward. So it's a cycle of people helping people. So like, don't be afraid of asking questions. And I think talk to the firm, like talk to people at the firm. But one thing to be cautious about is don't talk to people for the sake of talking. Like, don't just like, oh, I just want to get as many connections as possible in the firm, so I talk to 10 trainees or 10 associates at the firm asking the same questions. Like, don't do that. Like, honestly, it's always quality over quantity. So it's better if you get to know one person like well, and like it's okay for you to get a few different perspectives or a few different views from different people, but it's not like, oh, I will just ask 10 people so that I can name drop them in my application form. It doesn't work that way. And I would say the firms don't really look at your name dropping. They don't really put so much weight on your name dropping, because they know that everyone does that. So sometimes it might work to your disadvantage if you do that. And other than that is like attending the law firm, like attending the events that are hosted by the law firms. These are also a very good way for you to, to find out about not only the legal scene, but also the culture and the industry, and like how the firm is like, how the people there are like. because most of the time how people from the firm behave is how the firm's culture is shaped. So that's how you can roughly find out whether this is the right fit for you. And like last thing, I think one thing that is really like accessible is to make use of the legal websites. There are so many websites out there that is student friendly and it's for people who want to apply to for TCs. So like there is like the Corporate Law Academy. I think there is Chamber and Partners, Chamber Students. There is Legal Chic. There is Roll on Friday, Legal 500. There is a list of websites that you can go to, and most of the time, these websites, the opinions on these websites are given by people who are in the firm, but they chose to remain anonymous. So I think these are also ways to for you to know more about the firm, and they also even on these websites they also tell you about. I mean, they also explain to you about let's say the difference between a barrister and solicitor in the UK, and like how's the legal profession like in the UK and stuff like that. So like yeah, I think it's useful.
Definitely, yeah. Just to touch on your commercial awareness point of the news, reading the news and everything. Um, uh, I have to plug. Legal Mile does a newsletter, and we really endeavor to try to write in a way that will be helpful, that you can use as a structure for your interviews, and maybe learn how to kind of talk in your interviews, that sort of thing. If you want to check it out, right? We'll move on to the next question. So how did you know what area of law you wanted to specialize in when you were applying?
Okay, I guess I'm one of the luckier ones because I knew what I wanted to get into before that. But even with that being said, I'm kind of still weighing out my options. Like I'm not like 100% sure on where I want to be. But like honestly, attending these events help because sometimes these events they also have like a session on like an area in the firm. So like there's one open day that I've attended with Sherman and Sterling where they taught us about competition and antitrust. And then there's other events that teach you about corporate M&A and like how energy sector works, this kind of events. And I know HSF and a few other firms also do that. Like they do all these kind of headlines events for you to understand the sectors and for you to get a feel of the firm. So these are events where you can attend for you to kind of get a feel on like where you want to be. But like I've said before, I'm one of the luckier ones. And honestly, most of my friends and most of the people who have gotten a training contract don't know where they want to be. And that's fine. Because most of these firms are, they have contentious and non-contentious practice. So contentious are the litigation side, dispute resolution, and non-contentious are, like transaction corporate practices. So regardless of whether you know where to go, this would be, like you can get into a firm and you might go into a firm deciding that you want to do like corporate work and then you end up liking dispute resolution, and that's fine too because they do have all these kind of practices. But I would say it would be an advantage if you know where you want to be because that's how you can choose your firms as well. Like you can know which firms you want to apply to when you do your selection. But I guess if you don't know, you don't have to know for sure where you want to be at, which practice area you want to specialize in. But you can use the elimination method. I think that helps too. Like know for sure where you don't want to be, so that you can avoid applying to those firms that like are strong or specialized in those areas.
Yeah, definitely.
But I guess but one more thing is that even as I said this, I think. But the bottom line is you should know if you want to be a barrister or solicitor when you do all these kind of training contract applications. Like if you don't know yet, then you probably should try to find out more about it first before you go into it. Because both processes are different and it's tough and competition is strong. So you don't want to waste your time applying to both and not getting anything. And like let's say you apply to one. If you don't have your heart in it, you wouldn't get it as well. Like that's just how it is. So that's why I say it's important that at least you know where you want to be at, like which path you want to take, then you can decide after that.
No, yeah, that completely like leads on to the next question. But I do want to share just like my experience that in the start of the year I had no idea what I wanted to practice in either. And I think a good tip might be related to commercial awareness. Just start by reading articles about anything on the front page of a news website, and then like see what draws your attention and just follow like what you think is interesting. it eventually will lead you somewhere, I think. Hopefully that helps. Yeah, so we'll go to the next question, which Shireen has so kindly segued into. How did you choose between becoming a solicitor and a barrister?
Okay, I think this really boils down to the nature of the profession, because I'm not sure how much you all know about the demarcation between barristers and solicitors in the UK, but basically barristers are the people who represent the clients at court, and solicitors are the one who do the case handling. And I think personally why I prefer, actually I started out doing law because I want to be a barrister, but eventually down the road I changed my path because I like to work in a team, and I'm not a one-man person. Like, I don't think I like to do a one-man show. So that's part of the reason why I chose to be a solicitor instead of barrister. And one very clear difference between a solicitor and a barrister is the client-facing opportunities. So as a solicitor, you do most of the case handling. So even if the case goes to court at the end of the day, the barrister only comes into play towards the last stages where it's near the trial. But even throughout the whole case, the whole process of the case, you are the one who's doing the the handling of the case. Contacting your clients, arranging the bundles for the client. So like, I think if you are a person like me, I mean, if you're a person who likes to talk to people, who likes interacting with people, and you like client-facing jobs, then probably solicitor would be more suitable for you. But it's not to say that barristers don't have client-facing opportunities. It's just much lesser, because I guess nowadays most of the cases don't go to court anymore. They just settle out of court. So it's like, that's something you want to think about as well. And I think for barristers, their jobs are mainly to represent the clients at court, and also to draft bundles to be presented to the judge. And if this is something that you are interested in, that might be good for you. And if you're the kind of person who likes to speak in front of people, because as a barrister you represent your client before the judge, and when you're in a courtroom, you are literally alone there, and whatever happens next, you have to think on the spot. So if you are that kind of person and you like those kind of like that flexibility, then I would say yes, go for it, go and be a barrister. But if you like to sit down and brainstorm and to think of ideas, then I would say that honestly solicitors are a better choice. And also, I guess there's a difference between the job, the job scope, and also like the prospects as well. Because as a solicitor, you are employed by a firm, but as a barrister, most of the barristers start off being self-employed. Although some are employed, some are being employed now, but most of them have to they are self-employed and don't get a fixed salary at first and stuff like that. So if this is something that is your concern, you might want to think of not being of choosing the solicitor route.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I think this is a fair question. If our audience is like first year, second years, because like transferring from Malaysia, I didn't even know solicitor was an option. Like, because in Malaysia you have to advocate, you have to be a barrister in that kind of way. But yeah, I hope this was helpful. So we'll move on to the next question. So how did you know which law firm was right for you? So I guess like how did you go about choosing law firms to apply to?
Yeah, so I think there are a lot of things to think about actually when you want to apply, when you want to choose the right law firm. But I would say of course, the first thing, or like the most important thing, is the culture of the firm. Because I think I've mentioned this a lot of times, but you really don't want to be somewhere that you don't fit in. And there are also a lot of things that you should think of. Such as like the practice areas. So if you are certain that you only want to do litigation work, you wouldn't want to go to a firm that is mostly non-contentious and they have a very small dispute resolution practice. But with that being said, it's not like if you don't know your practice area, you can't choose the right firm. Because like HSF, they have very big corporate practice and dispute resolution practice. So even if you don't know, you can still be in there and try to decide later. And I guess not even during interviews, they don't really like force you to choose a practice area that you really want, and like they make you say like, oh, why do you want the to be in that area, that kind of thing. So you don't have to. And then I think the next thing would be the values and the priorities of the firm. That's really important. Like what I mean by values is, for example, some firms, most of the firms are doing a lot of things outside of work. Outside of legal work. such as pro bono, environmental like stuff, human rights, social justice, things like that. But it depends on what you think is important to you. So for example, for me personally, like one of the reasons why I chose HSF was because it was very active in pro bono work, which is something that I'm expecting in my future career. So that helped me, like that made me feel like HSF's values are aligned with my own and like where I want to be. So I think that's one of the reasons why. But there could be a lot of other factors that you might want to, and it could be like little factors like, oh, this firm like really does sports, or they really have a lot of like people who like to do sports and stuff like that. And you'll be surprised that like this happens in firms. Like although like on the surface everyone seems to be like solicitors, but honestly there are different like people at firms that, I mean, there are different things that different firms prioritize. So that's something you want to think about. And I guess the next thing is the training. So why I say like training is different across firms is because like for example, I know a lot of people like think that magic circle firms, silver circle firms are very prestigious, and obviously everyone thinks that, oh, this is where I want to apply to. But like I said earlier, not everyone are suitable to be in these firms because they are big, and their working style and the way they train you might be different from firms that are smaller. So that is something that you want to think about. And also like for example, American firms, because their headquarters are not in UK and they are based in America, so their London firms are definitely much smaller than the British firms, such as Links, Clifford Chance, HSF, Ashes, and etc. So you would expect a different training intake. For example, like HSF and Links, Clifford Chance, this kind of firm, you get a training intake of like 50 to 100, like around 80 to 90 people, which is a big intake per year. But if you go to American firms like, let's say, Sherman and Sterling, Sullivan and Cromwell, you'll get like, let's say, 10 people in your cohort. And of course, with that being said, if you have a smaller cohort, you might get more opportunities as a trainee. You might get more work, and you might get more responsibilities. So if that is what you want, then maybe you should consider American firms. But I guess one good thing about being in a British firm, I mean, applying to a British firm in the UK, is that because they are the headquarters, so their training cohort is quite big, which gives them the capacity to do or to organize a structured like training for you during your 2 years. So that might be something that you want to think about. And also secondment opportunities, because some firms, they do offer compulsory international secondment, so guaranteed that you can be seconded somewhere else in one of your seats in the 2 years. And if that's something that you are really interested in, then probably you should apply to those firms, because I know some of the firms do that. And some firms are not very keen on, are not very active in seconding their trainees. So if you are someone who is looking for that, then probably that's not where you want to be. And I guess that also leads to my last point, is that we should be on like geographical location as well. So most of the firms that we're talking about here, like who offers TC, have branches at most of the places. So like even in the UK itself, like some firms, they have a branch in London, but also branches in other parts of the UK. So if you think that you don't like the life in London and you prefer to work somewhere else in the UK, then probably these are the firms that you should apply to. But like most of the big firms, they don't have branches outside of the UK. So these are also something that you might consider. And I think most of these firms are quite international, so they have branches everywhere in the world. And normally how you know like which firm is stronger in which continent is to see how many branches they have in that continent. So for instance, like Ashes and HSF, they have a lot of branches in Asian region, Australasia. So naturally their stronghold is also in Asia, and they have a lot of Asian clients. And to some other firms, let's say American firms, of course they have a lot of branches in America, and like most of their clients are American clients, and their London office is just servicing their American clients and their offices in the UK itself or in Europe. So like I guess these are like things that you have to think about. Like, I know that most of us here probably are internationals, and you are not you might be thinking of your career prospects in the future as well. And like even if you are a British, you might want to be somewhere else in your down the road, like 5 years down the road after you become an associate. So if you are like particularly interested in America and like their work and the work over there, or you just want to be in the country, that's probably something to think about. Like, if I'm in an American firm, obviously your chances of being transferred like really transferred back to America is going to be much higher than, let's say, if I work in HSF and I want to be in America, because they only have like 2-3 offices there. So yeah, like these are things that I know that it doesn't sound that important like on the paper. I mean, people always tell you that yeah, it's a practice area that matters, it's the work. But I would say that, like, it also boils down to all this, because these, I mean, it's also part and parcel of your work in the future. So like these are things that you think about. And I think last but not least is the perks as well. Because I don't know if you all know this, but American firms pay a lot more higher than the British firms. So if like income or like the salary is something that you are really like is your first priority, then probably like American firms is the right way to go. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. But I would just caveat that, high pay doesn't come free. That they work, they really do work you.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Before I forgot about that point, that's true as well. Like, I think it's not that because you get paid really a lot, that's why they want to work you very hard. But it's also, it boils down to the nature of the firm, because like I said earlier, American firms don't have like a big office in London. So naturally their work is when they have a lot of work, then you have not enough staff, and that's where you have a very heavy workload. But I mean, if you are someone who really likes to work, or like you don't mind the long hours, then yeah, I mean, go for it. You get paid a lot in American firms. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, just to add to that, being worked hard doesn't necessarily mean bad. Like, the training would be top notch. The work that you get exposed to would be top notch. So it's kind of like a balance of your priorities, I guess. Yeah, thank you. That was a really, really, really comprehensive answer. I will move on to the next question. Do you have any advice for non-law students to gain experience in the legal industry?
Okay, I think for non-law students, fortunately in the UK, it's so much more flexible than just only law students can do law. And honestly, in my intake when I was on the back scheme, half the people weren't like law students, and like in the firm they are like doctors, engineers, mathematicians. So honestly, don't worry about your chances of getting a training contract just because you're not a lawyer and just because you're not a law student. And I guess what you can do is, I mean, if you don't get a back scheme when you apply for that, try for smaller firms where they offer you like informal internships. I think these are ways to learn as well, and because you are not from a law background, so it also might be useful for you to know if you really want to do law. I mean, for us, I guess as law students, it's a lot more easier because we do that on a day-to-day basis in school. So we can kind of gauge what we need to know and what the job entails. But for non-law students, it might be a bit hard because, I mean, honestly, the expectations is always far better than the reality. Like, when you watch shows like Suits, you would think that, yeah, being a corporate lawyer is so glamorous and, you get to do all these kind of things. But in reality, it's really not like that. So I guess getting informal internships is important. Like doing a few internships in the law firm really helps as well. And I think it links back to what I said earlier, like talk to people about it. Like especially people from the same background, like people who were not law students but have gone into law, and they'll probably give you a better advice than I would because I came from a law background. So yeah, and also I mean, and honestly, like just to add on, law firms don't really only look at your legal experience. So don't be so caught up with I have to get I have to like have 3 legal internships on my application to get selected. It's not always like that. If you could demonstrate that I gain the same skills that that are useful for legal career, then they would still like appreciate, and they will still select you like regardless. So because it's the transferable skills that matter and it's not the experience per se. And normally, like even if you do internships from other like sectors or even other industry, you could still gain the same skills. Like even if you're a cashier, you could still gain like client management skills, interpersonal skills, speaking to people and stuff like that. So it's like, honestly, I would say don't stress so much about the fact that you don't have any legal background.
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm conscious of time, so I will just move on to the next question. So I struggle with this as well. Obviously I know I want to do law, but it's hard to put it in words and not sound generic, like it's intellectually stimulating, it's prestigious. So if like, how would you kind of answer like why law for you?
Okay. This is a very good question because it has been very long since I answered this question. Okay. I know it sounds. I mean, when you ask people why law, it's quite hard because everybody will give you the same answer, like, oh yeah, I like client-facing jobs. Yeah, but they will be like, yeah, if you like client-facing jobs, why not be a consultant? You still do client-facing work. And like, oh, I like, I mean, it's a generic answers, a few same answers like client-facing, fast-paced, teamwork, intellectually stimulating, challenging, and what's that called? Rewarding. This kind of answers is generic, but I know that some of you have this struggle because I certainly do. Where I feel like, yeah, it's generic, but this is really why I wanted to do law. So like, why are you saying that I can't say this because that's really why? Like, but I guess one of the way how you make it personalized is how you like tailor it to yourself is to add in your own experience. For example, when you say that, oh, it's a very rewarding career, why would you think so? Like, don't tell me it's because you watch Suits and then you think that, oh, it's a very rewarding career. It's you can throw in things like, yeah, like my experience, or because I've done a internship with another law firm, or I've done this with that, and then like I've moved on this case with my mentor, and I feel like I've done when the deal was like done or when the transaction is completed, I felt the sense of satisfaction. So I felt like I really want to be a solicitor, things like that. Or like let's say you say like oh, fast paced, like why you think that you like a fast paced job. You could always say like I've been doing this society or I've been doing this event, then I felt like I really like this environment and stuff like that, and that's why I wanted to do law. And with teamwork as well, it's the same thing. Like you could always say like, yeah, because I have participated in this society or this club and I've worked with a lot of people, and I'm aware that being a solicitor would involve working with a lot of people from different backgrounds, and I really enjoy it. So that's why I really want to be a solicitor. And these are ways that you can make your answer or your reason sound convincing and sound like, yeah, actually like he or she really knows what they're talking about, like I think they really want to do law. So it's important not to fall into the trap of like, yeah, I just list out what they want to hear, but more like what you think you want to tell them.
Definitely. I think for me, I don't have much legal work experience, and I know some people don't really have that either. I would say that I've done volunteering things that are related, like, or your university would likely offer these things. So I would kind of say, you can even say that you spoke to someone in a law career, and that kind of motivated you to do volunteering related to law, that kind of thing. Any kind of segue that shows that you really know what you're talking about, what life as a lawyer is I think
Yeah, I think so as well. Like, and honestly, I didn't really talk about my law. I did do legal internships before I applied for VAC schemes, but that wasn't the bulk of what I said during my interview because I wasn't exactly very proud of that. I mean, like, yes, I do enjoy the experiences, but they are not things that I am most proud of, or it's not the things that are on top of my achievements that I want to tell people. So I talk mainly about, like my part-time jobs or like me being me volunteering and stuff like that. So these are things that it's always, like I said earlier, they don't really care whether the experience is law related or not, as long as you show the motivation of like, this is why I want to do law. But I guess one thing that is very important for you to answer that question is for you to know what a legal career entails first. Because if you don't know and you only hear it from people or you watch it from movies, it's quite likely that you are not getting the right picture of a legal career. Like, yes, it's high paced and it's challenging and it sounds all glamorous and prestigious, but the hours you have to put behind it is also not, you cannot like neglect that fact. So I guess like to make your answer sound convincing, you should be able to consider both sides of the coin and be able to convince yourself that, yeah, this is still why I want to do law. And the partners are quite honest in the interviews. Like they know they work long hours. They don't try to lie to you and sugarcoat and say like, oh yeah, we just like, it's chill. We are all like, we work until 5 p.m. We go home. They don't. Like honestly, when I was in my vaccine, they tell me, the people there tell me straight away, like, you have to be prepared to work for long hours sometimes when transactions are closing in, when we are tight on deadline, it's expected of you to work long hours. But these are just things that you have to put in if you want to be a lawyer, or if you want to be, if you just want to work anywhere and you want to get that result, that's how it is. So there is a pros and cons to it, I would say. Like, you want to talk about high pace, but you also need to know what are the consequences that come with it. So these are things that you should be prepared to defend during that question. Like some partners might actually ask you like, oh, okay, yeah, it's challenging. So what if you what if you meet a question, or what if you meet a client and you can't solve their question? So is it still challenging for you, and what do you say to that? And these are things that you think about. You can't like, oh yeah, it's really challenging, and then when they ask you, you don't really have an answer to that. So I would say really think of both sides of the coin first, and then know how to defend yourself like during the interview.
Amazing. Yeah, definitely. So I am conscious that we ran across time, so I'll just round it off with like a general advice that you can give to our audience. Everything you've said has been so comprehensive, and I'm sure it's super helpful to them. So having succeeded in your training contract application now, if you could go back in time and kind of give yourself a piece of advice that you think would be key to like getting you through the process, like what do you think? What would you give?
I think the key advice I would give is to be okay with rejection, and to know that it's not that you are not good, it's just that maybe it's just not for you. Like I said, training contracts or even being a solicitor or being a lawyer is not for everyone. And I know it sounds glamorous and prestigious to be called a lawyer or a solicitor, but sometimes like it's really not for you, then it's not for you. So, and I guess with training contracts, right, and vaccine applications, it's a lot of trial and error. As much as your capability and your competency really counts, but there's only so much that the firm can take. Like from like 8 to 10,000 of applications a year, they take in 100 people for their vaccine, and then they take in 50 people for their training contract. So can you imagine the amount that's being cut down? And you might just be one of them. It's not because that you're not good. It's just that there's too many good people, and they just can't choose everyone. So, and it's really a game of perseverance in this like whole journey. I know it's difficult, especially for me personally. It has been very difficult as well when I first got rejected, and I just felt like, oh, is it because I'm really bad? Like I felt like everyone else is so good, and then I'm not good enough. Everybody felt that way. Trust me. Like everyone who has been through this process would know that that pain, or they have felt that before. But the most important thing is don't take it too personally, and use it as a motivation to keep going. Like when something goes wrong, try to think about what is wrong with the application instead of dwelling on like, oh, I'm just not good enough, that's why I'm not here. Maybe it's just like something wrong. It's like I said earlier, right? It might be just the way you craft your applications that you don't make yourself stand out enough, and it might be just that the criteria or like your capabilities or your competency doesn't fit what the what the firm wants. So these are things that also come into play, and there's just so many reasons for you to get rejected from a firm. So it's really not like, don't take it too personally. I think if you want to, like, it's a very long journey and it's a very long battle to fight. So you just have to be okay with being rejected and just move on. And I think the second thing, which might also be very important, is don't do it blindly. Like don't do the process blindly, because applying for a vac scheme takes a lot of effort and it takes up a lot of your time. So if you're not sure, or if you know that you are not doing it because you like it, then don't do it. Because like chances are you're not going to put in your 100%, and if you don't, it's just going to be a waste of time. So if you're really sure that you want to do it, then only do it. Like don't don't just go into it and say, I will try and see. I mean, of course it's good to go in with this mindset, I'll try to see if I get any. But you should know that I really want it, that's why I'm going to try. Not like I'll try and see, then I will decide if I really want it. That's not really the way of doing this lah. Because applying for a vac scheme or a training contract in the UK, it's a very long process. Like, I mean, you have to write like thousands of essays, you have to go through different interviews just to get a vacation scheme spot. So you wouldn't want to waste all this effort if you are not really keen on doing it. Yeah. And don't listen to your peers, and don't cave into peer pressure. Especially, I know a lot of us at university, like we always hear from people, oh yeah, I got this vac scheme, I got into that firm, I'm gonna be like a trainee there. And then you will feel like, oh, maybe I should also apply that because it sounds really prestigious and it's nice to have, those kind of titles. But if it's not what you want, then really don't bother and don't waste your effort. You could be better off being a barrister, like you never know. So like honestly, really think about it before you go into it.
Yeah. Absolutely agree. All right. Well, thank you so much. That was literally the most useful session I've ever heard. And yeah, thank you so much, Shireen. If you like this event, we have a lot more lined up in the future. So follow our LinkedIn page, follow our Instagram. Um, yeah. Well, if Azhar, anything else to add? If not, we're done.
Oh no, I would just
Oh yeah,
like
I
to
just
say
wanted
thank
to
you.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah, sorry. I just wanted to add something. Like, if there's any questions after this that you have thought of and you have not had the opportunity to ask, feel free to message me on LinkedIn, and I will get back to you as soon as I can. And if you would like more information on, like on the application process itself or on HSF itself, I'll be happy to do that as well. So you can just drop me a message or drop me a line on LinkedIn, and I will get back to you. Yeah. And thank you, Legal Mouth,
God.
for organizing this. I really appreciate it.
Isn't she amazing? All right, thank you so much. Yeah, Azhar, anything?
Oh no, I'd just like to say thank you, Shireen, and thank you to the audience for attending. So it was really insightful. Like a lot of the things that you said is really going to be helpful for like the application process that we are going through right now. So yeah.
Yeah, all right, thank you guys. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Oh, she left too. Okay.
Oh, um,
It's okay. I'll thank her like on WhatsApp.
wait, there's one more person. Hold on.
What?
Sup, guys?
Oh,
How was your
hi.
webinar?
How's your
It
webinar?
was really all 30 showed up, which was surprising.